Pretty good. So welcome everybody. Welcome NAAC members. Thanks for whoever's tuning in. I can't see because I don't have the computer right now, but I'd like to welcome our guest, David E. Lange. We're here at his studios in Edgewood, and it's just David Lange Studios, right?
Yes.
It's so great. It's so easy to remember.
Yeah, it's inventive.
Well, I'm going to introduce David here. I have his great bio, and then we'll get off to a great start here. So David began playing accordion at the age of 5 and continued to play into his late teen years. He gradually switched to keyboards and toured with a number of bands. Growing tired of the road, he set up a small garage recording studio in Tacoma in 1980. He moved to his new studio in Edgewood in 1990 and continues to record acoustic music there. As an engineer, he was sometimes called on to add a keyboard or accordion part to the song. This was the case when he played on Pearl Django's 1997 recording Mystery Pacific. He played on all their subsequent recordings and joined the group in 2007, along with playing on 10 Pearl Django CDs. Holy moly. He has played accordion on countless other projects. He recorded his first solo project, Almost Home, in 2007, and his second solo project, Mélange, will be released in January 2017. So here we are. It's already released last year. I can't believe it's 2018. For a second, I was like, it's getting dropped now, but that was last year now because it's a new year.
Yes.
Yeah. Happy New Year, everybody. Let's go ahead. If you don't know anything about Pearl Django, so David, you've been an unofficial member of the band since the beginning. So that was in their first album. That's how you met them.
That's not. I've been associated with the band since the very beginning. In fact, prior to when they were called Pearl Django, there was an incarnation called Quartet Deluxe.
Okay.
And slightly different members, but the two founding principal members, Dudley Hill and Neil Anderson, were in that, and it morphed into Pearl Django. But when it was Quartet Deluxe, I recorded them, and then I recorded, when they changed their name and changed a little bit of their membership, I recorded them again, but it was 2 more discs after that I actually played with them.
Okay. Let's see here.
And that just happened because there was this one song called Nuit de Saint-Germain.
Okay.
My French is not worth repeating, but it was a kind of a rapid little thing, and it laid really, I think it was like an E flat, and it laid just horribly on the violin. And so Michael wasn't looking to play on that, and I said, well, I could probably do that on accordion, and then they liked it, so I've been playing with them ever since.
I just happen to have a violin switch right here. That'd be like the best thing if somebody was like, I'm going to do this bassoon solo, and you're like, well, it just so happens that I have...
It's not exactly
not
the same
exactly
thing.
The same thing,
no.
But, anyway. Am I missing anything? I mean, there's plenty of things that... This is a very short bio, I kind of get, like, long ones a lot. This is very, like, modest.
Well, much of my life has been in the studio. I can give you a longer bio for
studio work.
For studio work, yeah.
Well, we'll talk about that and some of your projects, and I think we'll definitely get into some studio stuff. But I always like to kick it off with a tune. You mind playing something for us?
Yeah, I'm going to try one that I think is comfortable.
Okay.
But you never know. So this is just kind of a classic, somewhere between French and American autumn leaves.
All right.
Kind of thing. So. And, well, the arrangement will be on the fly.
I love it.
Turn that on.
Yes. Yes. Whoa, man. And you were like, I don't play too much solo, so that was fantastic. So much stuff that I would like to unbox there, so I'm going to try to be objective. Let's get like the quick questions out of the way, like the stereotypical accordion questions, like what kind of box you playing on, man?
So it's a 62 AM 1100, and I'm the original owner.
It's amazing. I don't know if it's just the period that they were built, or if it's just like a matter of like an age on an instrument, but I find those like vintage 50s and 60s. Whether it's like a Petosa or some of the Sonolas, or there's all kinds of those like golden era accordions.
Right. I don't want to diminish the new ones. They're great, but in that time period of late 60s or late 50s, early 60s, I mean, it was the high point of the instrument, and people were screaming for accordions, and it attracted a lot of fabulous artisans. And so, in that period, the best box makers, the best reed makers, the best everything, And of course, all that technology that they learned and developed applies to the new ones. But it was a high point for the instrument, and there's just a lot of soul in this. And I think you're right too. I seemed like, mine played a little bit during my 20s, 30s, 40s. But I really started digging in and working it hard. And I think it's a little bit like a guitar in that all of that wooden stuff opens up and gets a little cooler sounding from all that vibration. So.
I totally agree. I mean, you can just hear it has a lot of. It's warm, but it's still it still projects really well, and I mean, it's just a great box. And even with the low C, that thing sounded great. The low C was just really, I mean, it's super in tune. It's a big fat bass sound. And
yeah, it's nice. It doesn't have, it's a little noisier than a modern machine, I think. Let's see.
Sure, a little key clicking never hurt
that.
anybody, though,
Yeah, you can use it for percussion. Yeah.
There you go, yeah. So that's one of the things we're going to talk about later when we're recording these things. But let's talk about, your arrangement a little bit and just, what are some of the things that you're doing? I see a lot of,
We did have a question from Ken McNichols.
Oh, cool.
He wants to know about the note bending.
The note bending, that has never come up before. I did a video on this, and it's pretty easy to track down, and it's probably going to be a little more comprehensive than what we're going to want to do right now. But some things I didn't cover on that, like on this particular tune, if you practice, you can do. I'll show you the basic thing, but then, so you start it, and I've developed a technique where I kind of wedge my thumb under because it takes a real precise control on how much you can release the key. If you don't release it enough, it's not going to do anything, and if you release it too much, it's going to die. So my workaround is, I don't know if you can, maybe I can turn this way.
Oh yeah.
I push down, I wedge my thumb under so I can control the depth.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's also, if you noticed here, so you get it at a certain degree, and then you can fine tune it with the pull of the bellows.
Right.
And with a little work, you can, like on that one, I was going for a half step bend. For a second, it was an E flat, but not a second, a millisecond. It was an E flat, but yeah, you can kind of do some precision bending with a little bit of work.
When you're pulling is when it's getting flatter, right?
It's going flatter. Yeah.
The harder you pull, you mean? So the more pressure you're putting.
Yeah, the harder you pull, it seems really counterintuitive to me.
Right.
It seems like you're making that air rush. It's gonna go the other way, but I think it has something to do with stalling out or something.
Right. It's not opening completely.
Yeah.
And when you're pushing down, we're talking about like a millimeter or something. It's really precise.
It's very incremental. Yeah, it's very small. That's why I say if you can get under there, it's. Yeah, I can't do a close-up of that, but you just get your thumb under there, and then you can squish your thumb a little bit and control that to a pretty high degree.
Add some resistance so you can be more
precise.
Yeah, yeah.
Karen wants to know, is that hard on the reed?
Oh, Karen. I've been doing it for 5 years, and people ask it all the time. No, it doesn't seem to be hard on the reed. I don't have to tune it any more than any other instrument. I've never broken a reed, but I'm not a heavyweight puller like some people.
I've heard that from a lot of people. Like,
have you broken a reed?
I've broken a reed.
Okay, well we have the real person here.
That's right. Yeah. Well, you got to be strong,
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems to be a question everybody asks. Like, I remember hearing somebody bend a note, and somebody, I don't remember who it was, like what camp I was at or something, and they're like, "Oh, that's so bad for your accordion" or something, and I don't know.
Yeah, no, I've been doing it forever.
It sounds great. It's a fun effect, and especially when you can do it like in a controlled way. I think that's an issue that I've run into is like, I know you can do it, but gosh, like I haven't heard that many people use it like really effectively, like, shooting for a half step below and making it like really musical. Sometimes it ends up becoming more of like an effect that I've heard on some like avant-garde pieces and stuff, and it just doesn't add a whole lot. I think like the way you used it was really
and
artistic.
you can hear when it goes down, it's doing more than just going flat. It stresses out the reed, so it's that same thing when you're bending a note on a saxophone or something. It's changing all the harmonic structure. It's changing everything. you'd never do that. But it changes the tone too. It kind of
Yeah.
it's a little less bright, and it has this tense feeling to it.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It reminds me of like a sham or something, like a double reeded like Middle Eastern thing. How it has that kind of, it gets really nasally. It's cool.
Yeah, so the tone definitely changes.
I gotta say, your time was really cool, even with like the extra syncopated stuff. I mean, it was still feeling really locked in, and that was really enjoyable. Something I just think is so important.
Time, yeah, I'm very much about time, especially the kind of music I play. But I think just everyone, if you're playing any kind of rhythmic music, time is the real deal.
So, are you a to a click player or practicer?
Yes, when I'm behaving, when I'm being a good person, I play to a click. And sometimes when I realize that my time's getting a little bit loosey-goosey, I'll go back to the click, because it's definitely the place to start. Yeah.
Of course, fundamental stuff. But I don't, people do get a little bit testy with like, how much they want to play to a click, and you hear all kinds of different stuff.
I'm totally fine with people not playing to a click if they know how to play to a click.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, I get that. I mean, there's reasons for wanting to speed up or slow down or do a lot of things that you can't do to a click, and that's totally musical and everything else. But if your time is going like this because you can't play like this, then it's time to get out the metronome.
Hear that, people? Metronome. Trying to get good time, get that click out. Somebody that I always, many admirers of his playing, but Frank Morocco, always playing to a click. I went to his studio in LA, and my friend Frank Petrilli was like, he always practices to a click. You can hear it in the guy's time. It's really, I think when you hear somebody and you're thinking like, gosh, this is so swinging, or this is like really, this is feeling so great. It's not because of all the stuff necessarily they're doing over here. It's like that, really feeling the bottom.
Yeah, it's actually, if you can, it's something I'm still working on. I think it's a lifetime a thing that everyone works on. But if it's in the body, I wish I grew up being a dancer or something, and everyone will laugh about that, because I'm as far away from that as possible. But if you have it in your body, like the Brazilian stuff, then it almost doesn't matter what you play, because if you're here, even if you make a mistake, you're going to immediately jump back on the track, and you're going to be there.
Yeah.
But if you're just trying to play a bunch of notes and you don't have the time thing, it can get
nebulous.
Yeah, nebulous.
Let's talk a little bit about some of your chord stuff before we get to another piece of music. I don't want to talk too much about like what you just did, but there's just so much cool things happening, and I just don't know if everybody is like totally aware. I'm sure some people are. Like your chord combinations, like what do you like? Everybody's like major 7 is, C over E minor. Yeah. But like there's some cooler things you're doing here, and what are some of the things that like you like to do or develop on a tune like Autumn Leaves with this stuff?
Well, I tend to like things that are a little dark, and so having minor things with tensions is probably something I really gravitate towards. And there's a few shapes that I always go for, and it's, I'm trying to expand my palette, but a lot of minor major 7s, that's pretty common. Sharp 11s always.
Forever.
It's so beautiful.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah.
And then,
so do you play the dominant 7 of the root, or you just play? So you are playing dominant 7 and the major D major essentially.
I'm playing dominant of the root and D7.
D7.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Sure, and that's an easier shape too.
Yeah, it's a good shape, and it sounds nice, at least on this instrument.
I think it sounds great. Love the sharp 11.
And that's also a nice one.
Are you doing the dominant with 1 on the bottom? Like
C7 and a D flat minor.
Oh, cool.
And
So the flat 9 thing and the
that's an altered.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a wonderful sound
It's
too.
beautiful. I mean, you just play that chord all day and just play those notes, and all of a sudden you're an impressionist accordion player.
Yeah, when you get that whole tony thing going on in there, it's just a great time. Yeah. Okay, before we go on, there was this one thing that somebody asked me on the email. I think it was I remember I made a note about that, Jamie, on the sticky notes, and it was a question about like fingerings for some of these chords. You catch that?
I don't know how to get to this.
I got this. I have it here. Actually, no, I don't. It's on the bottom of the screen. There is that little yellow, looks like a little sticky note, very bottom of the screen. Okay, I'm gonna find it later.
Okay, it's just fingering things?
Yeah, it was like some finger numbers or some fingerings for these particular chord shapes, but we'll figure it out. And if I can't get it on the interview, I'll ask you afterwards, and we can.
Yeah, is there? I mean, I stopped thinking about fingering in the left hand.
Just do what you got to do.
But are there alternates?
Everybody kind of.
No one doesn't do. People don't do 3/2, do they?
For some people do. I mean, I hear a lot of people who are more averse to using their pinky as opposed to that kind of, which I use all the time.
Use your pinky all the time?
Yeah, I do.
Well, you have to for these big stretches.
For these big stretches, you have to.
Yeah.
So remember that, people. Don't be afraid to use the pinky. It's very important stuff. Plenty more things.
I talked to a guy who uses his thumb.
Oh yeah, for some like those.
But I haven't done that.
I've heard people doing that.
I don't know how you control that, but.
Do you ever play the dominant 7 with the diminished row, like where you do like it's kind of like a funky straight shot across, and you get like sort of a flat 9 sound?
Oh, you mean like a? Are you talking about like?
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Thing? Mm-hmm. That's minor 7 flat 5.
Okay.
That's the essential chord for gypsy jazz.
Right.
You gotta have
half
that
diminished
one.
chord, but I've never seen that shape. I usually play it like A over
use
C minor.
I use that shape because it's usually it's rather than jumping down there. For me, it lays better, but I know other people play it the other way.
It.
That was Ron Papaleo in Cleveland.
That's right. And he's on here, isn't he? Isn't he on the chat? I thought I saw him.
Yeah, he was there.
Okay, well, we better get to his question then.
Ask him to clarify fingerings for minor 7 flat 5 chords. He says that he uses his 4th finger on the counterbass line for the bass note and his 2nd finger for the chord. But
that's
it
what we
looks
just
like
did, right?
You are using different.
Yeah, well, we just talked about that because I usually go up here. I'm doing
3 and 2.
Yeah. Let's see. So I'm doing a 3/2 because I'm going from up above, but you could go. Let's see. And how do you usually lay it?
I usually do like a bass and like a C minor chord in the left on the pinky, like a 3 and a 5.
Oh, you go like that.
I do.
You do that.
But with 3 and 5, yeah. Yeah.
Oh. Well, there you go. Any way you want to, I think, is the answer.
Yeah, whatever works out right, and I think also.
Oh yeah, because then you get that other note too. It's a little thicker that way.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's nice to be thin, though, you know. It's a time.
That's highly overrated. Yeah. Well, that's
so
cool.
I think.
So thanks for the question.
Context is a big key, and like some of this stuff too, like how you're moving can kind of dictate, you know, is this shape going to work well, or is it going to be that sort of straight across shape? Is kind of what I describe it as looking at it. Sweet, Ron. I hope that answers your question. But I would like to hear another fantastic tune, David, if you got one.
Yeah. So I could do something. I've sort of been playing around with All the Things You Are.
Cool.
I like that song, and I kind of came into it late of age. It's gorgeous. It's kind of similar to the last one. I could brave like a little musette. and see how stumbly that is.
You know, whatever you feel good to play, I'm sure we feel good to listen to.
Well, that one would be different. I'll try. I'll give that a go. It's the classic. It's in de France, and this is on my last CD, and I did this with my son. And we have a pretty adventurous arrangement that I can't do solo, but I'll just kind of play the tune. I do a couple of crazier. Well, I do a little crazier left-hand thing in the B section. See if that survives.
Yeah.
He's Eddie.
Oh, it was wonderful. It was wonderful. And that accordion like speaks so well too, like a lot of different volumes. Like even I just found it to be it's a very great sounding box. What got you into playing the French music thing? Not just like the musette thing, but the gypsy jazz thing, and has that always been like an interest of yours since you began playing the accordion, or?
Well, I'd like to confess that it was a passion and that I sought it out, but it's one of those wonderful things where it sort of dropped in my lap. I've always played jazz since I was a youngster, and I migrated to different instruments. But when Pearl Django came, it was like just a really nice fit for me because I could do the jazz thing. I'm not a scholar on gypsy jazz music, and I should be for as much as I play it. But I love playing it. Some of the Django tunes are great, and then there's the classic standards that we get to play, and then we write a lot ourselves, and so it gives me a chance to become a composer. Everyone in the band writes to some degree.
Super important. Got to be writing, you know.
Yeah, well, that's the great thing about it. I mean, your playing helps your writing, and your writing helps your playing, and so if you can continue that cycle, it just makes you all around better musician.
I couldn't agree more. Love that statement. Okay. Comping techniques, you know, for this stuff. I know you have a video on that too. But I think that maybe we can do like a quick sort of
little review
synopsis of that, and then we can, you know.
Yeah, I don't know what other people do, so this is what I developed, and and it works for me. Partly it works. I mean, the left hand is real bitey, and so when you put those real hard syncopations on the left hand, it's like it has this. It just works for me. So I just play time with my right. Well, I mean, I'm always doing constantly different things, but the basic thing that I did in the video and the thing that works pretty well for a lot of people is just playing time like you're a guitar player in the right hand. And I've heard people say, you know, I'm an accordion player, why should I play like a guitar player? The guitar player's already doing that. And to a certain extent that's true. However, if you've really followed the Django stuff, Django always wanted 2 rhythm guitar players. And so, you know, I'm just trying to be nice. I'm being another rhythm guitar player. A lot of times I'll do pads. I'll do a whole array of different things. But if I'm playing rhythm, I just keep time with my right hand. And you would think that's the easiest thing in the world. It's really not. And especially, you really have to be listening to the guitar players, and you have to be locking in with that all the time. But then if you throw the left hand in with a syncopation, it really makes it kind of swing. You know, so, but again, it's that thing of the time's got to be in your body. That's where it's got to be. And then what comes out, you know, hopefully it's going to be swingy.
Sure. You know, I think the other benefit of that is that, you know, we're sort of locked into some certain chord voicings here, and so it can not be quite as graceful on the left hand, just checking the chords out as much as the right hand, and it's a different keyboard mechanism too. So you have a little bit more, I think, a little bit more control of the articulation on the right hand side, and so you can dig into that feel a little better. Because, you know, what do they call that? The pump.
Yeah, la pompe.
La pompe.
Yeah.
La pompe.
Yeah, and we don't do it on accordion, but that kind of it's a real strong downbeat kind of thing.
Yeah, and you know, like we're talking about, time, you know, is essential. So like if what you're doing isn't the most, people say, oh, I'm doing the same thing as the guitar player, but you know, if it feels good, then you should probably do it.
And you know, it gets tiring to hear. Well, it's really tiring to hear someone play too much all the time. You know, when someone else is soloing. When you've got someone soloing, your job is to propel that solo, to stay behind it, to push it, to help it. If he gets louder, you're behind, you're shaping that, all of that. So there's a lot to do, but one thing there is not to do is play a lot of notes while he's soloing. So you've got to thin it out. And sometimes I'll just go.
Sure.
But that gives you some place to go later on. So you're adding this little bit. And then. You know.
I dig it.
Keep adding more stuff. Change it up.
Totally. So, want to talk about some recording stuff. I think that'd be really valuable for people out there. But I was going to say, it sounds like what we're talking about is like listening, you know?
Listening, that's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Huge deal.
Yeah.
And it's big fun. Listening is really fun. If you're listening and you're responding and you're having this community experience with the people you're playing with, there's nothing better.
I feel like sometimes, and this is not the case for everybody, but you know, accordion and for a lot of people, not everybody, but for a lot of people is a solo instrument. And I feel like people like practice a lot of solo repertoire, and that was a focus for a lot of people. It's like, you know, the accordion can play all the parts of the band. And I don't know if that helped a lot of people in their listening. You know, it's like, I know that there was accordion bands and that there was bands with accordion, but what I've experienced, at least a little bit, and this isn't just like accordion players, this is just people in general, but I'm talking in context of accordion players, like when they play with each other, sometimes it can be a little bit like that they're just playing at the same time as each other, and they're not actually playing with each other. And I have a feeling that, or my opinion is that it's really about, you know, not listening strongly when you're playing your instrument. You're used to just hearing yourself. And that's not always the case. Obviously, there's plenty of great players.
Well, there's plenty of precedent for that. I mean, this is going to give me a lot of trouble. But for years, I did a lot of singer-songwriter stuff, and I loved it. I loved it for a lot of reasons, mostly because those really dedicated people to their craft. But many of them, if not most of them, worked hours and hours by themselves playing their stuff. And in that situation, it's much that same way. They never had to work with anyone else, and they didn't have a way of doing that well. And just the better they got, and the more people they worked with, then that changed. But same sort of thing. If you're playing in a closet all the time, if you're playing in a closet all the time, play with a click. but yeah, it's really good to get out and play with other people and respond to what they're doing, and hopefully they're going to respond to you. But you're right. I think if you're always doing solo stuff, you don't have to have that community thing. You're kind of all by yourself.
And let's be real, it's like the most fun part, It's when you're really playing with other people, and it's you're listening and you're working together, and you're serving the music in a way that's really like true.
Yeah, and then when something comes together and you're both like, oh yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
That's great. There's nothing greater. Much greater than me sitting here playing solo accordion.
Well, I don't know, man. I think it sounds wonderful, and I think it's about that time for us to hit another one. Then we'll get on to like our next sort of topic of conversation. So.
Okay, I don't have much left in the trunk here, so we'll do this one.
We did get a request for happy birthday.
Oh.
There you go, Alva.
Yay!
Yeah, so let's do this one I was talking about earlier. It's
okay.
Just a great, great song. And it's got a great number of chord changes in it. So it's called All the Things You Are. Mm-hmm. And, in the jazz community, it's often referred to as All the Chords I Know. It goes through a lot of keys.
It's a super standard.
It's a beautiful tune. Everybody knows it except for me. I started learning it a couple years ago because it was like, wow, that's a great song. So let's see if I know how to play it. We use that same chord. That's a great chord to start out with.
Yeah,
That's a cool song.
that's a great tune. I've said it many, many times. It's some just fantastic arranging, great chord work. The time's fantastic, and the accordion sounds great. Can't say that enough. Just so pleasant to listen to you play. Yeah, I just feel like really, really honored to be able to like meet with so many great accordion players and like yourself and hang out and play good music. It's just like so fulfilling. I love it so much. Let's talk about like the studio and your recording space. We're here. I know you can't see everything, everybody, but there's fantastic instruments, gear, and there's accordions hanging on the wall, and there's great keyboards and stuff. I mean, this is a really wonderful spot. And how did you get into the recording thing?
You know, I was on the road for about 5 years, and during those 5 years, I was thinking, how can I get off the road? It was not my favorite thing.
No feeling.
So actually, it morphed out of something. It morphed out of another passion for me. But I did save all the money I had to feed this passion. Was that at the time that I was playing out, synthesis was just kind of coming into being, and I was really fascinated by synthesizers. And at the time, this is really dating me, but at the time synthesizers could only play one note at a time.
Monosynths.
Yeah, and I saved up all of my money and I bought this EMU modular synthesizer, and actually I got you know, I dealt directly with the factory, and it's an amazing instrument. And I wanted a polyphonic keyboard, and they had a used one because they'd made a new one, and this guy who owned the original one traded it in. The guy who traded it in was Frank Zappa.
Okay.
So I got Frank Zappa's old keyboard. And since I could only do one, maybe two notes at a time now, I needed a tape machine in order to do anything with it. So I did a lot of programming and I did a lot of recording. And so I saved up for a half-inch 8-track Atari, and I started doing synthesis stuff, which is so far away from this. And then I had to feed my habit. And so I had the recorder already. I sprang for a mixer, and then just people I knew, I started selling time. It was back when not everybody had, had a recording studio in their pocket. You know, like here, you This actually took an expense. So I started selling studio time. Continued with synthesis. I used it on a lot of recordings and stuff. And then over the years, it was just the promise of what I thought synthesizers were going to bring to us never really developed. There were a few people who took it to a better level, but mostly it became, manufacturers started putting a bunch of sounds in a box. People played the sounds in the box. Okay, look at me, I'm an organ player. Look at me, I'm a guitar player, sort of. I think there was a lot more promise in the instrument than what happened. But anyway, I got kind of less interested in that, and then started coming back to the accordion. And I realized that what I was really excited about with synthesizers was like the possibilities were just this huge thing. And when I got back to the accordion, it was like the possibilities are right there. That's all you can do. What can you do with them? And that kind of narrowing of possibilities was like this extreme freedom. And it's kind of what brought me back to this thing. And it's just looking for, okay, this is all I can do. What more can I do with this? And so this has been really exciting.
I see you have a Quartervox back there too. That thing still work? Talking about synthesis.
I went through 2 Quartervoxes, yeah. So that was in that period where I was looking for the universe in a box, and then I didn't realize it was in what you were holding.
It's already there.
Yeah, so I went through a couple of those, and no, it doesn't work anymore. The tube one, I sold, and the electronic one, I think the electronics are someplace, and up in an attic someplace. And the box still works. It wasn't a horrible accordion. It wasn't a great accordion, but it was a serviceable accordion, and so I still have the accordion.
It always feels bad throwing accordions away.
You can't do that. No. I mean, I've started hanging them.
Yeah, they become art pieces,
Yeah, I mean, you can't see it from here, I don't think, but can you see the little red accordion up in the ceiling?
I don't know if I can or not. Maybe I'll take a bunch of photos of all your cool stuff, and I'll put them on the NAAC Facebook.
That was kind of what got me going. It was when I was 5 years old. My uncle played that red accordion, and it kind of looks like the Ruby Slippers, only in accordion shape.
Yeah.
It's all sparkly and beautiful. And for a 5-year-old kid, that was like, wow, a powerful machine, and it's made out of diamonds.
Yeah, well. So. I was thinking the other day, what's the fastest way to sell an accordion? It's like, don't tell them what it has in it. Just say, what color do you like, and then just show it to them. Let me see here. I want to check on time. I know, I have a tendency to go quite long because I just have so much stuff to talk about.
Yeah, if we, how are we doing for time?
We have about 10 minutes left.
10 minutes, and we want to play together.
And we should play a tune.
We can talk about recording the accordion a little bit.
Yeah, that'd be great.
We just had a couple questions come in.
Yeah.
Okay, recording on the accordion?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect timing. So let's...
microphones, mixing.
Okay.
Fantastic.
Everything. I'm going to try and treat this with a video in the future because I've had this question a couple of times, but we can talk about it a little bit. I think the one thing is I like to mic everything in stereo. So I would always use 2 mics over here. I have in the past, I think there's the first song I did a song on my first project, and it had fairly intricate bass work on it. And I actually used 2 mics on that one. But normally I'm far too lazy to do that. And usually you don't have to do that.
Sure.
So that's I think the only occasion where I mic the left hand in stereo. But what I do with the left hand, and I would guess that everybody does this, but I'm not around everybody. I built a little piece of cardboard that hangs out over here that I attach a microphone to. I actually had Frank Morocco in the studio once. We were talking. He came. I know he came up between you and I. I can't remember if we were talking to other people, but when we mic'd him, we had this microphone way out here and something over here and stuff. And I think it's what he had done in the past. So it makes me think that maybe not everybody does it the way I do it. But I put a little harness here, and I have a little ATM 25. Has pretty nice bass response. It's not real expensive. I think they're still available. Because I generally don't like using the mics inside.
Mm-hmm. I was gonna ask about that.
So I usually put that because then that follows, and it doesn't matter where you are here.
Right.
Your left hand doesn't change volume all the time. I think that would be a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And then stereo on here. Microphones, I've used a bunch of different things. I tend to go back to kind of some expensive ones, but it's not necessarily that they're that much better. Something you might consider trying, and maybe before you would buy them, but I have a client who used Octavas. They're not real expensive. You can get a matched pair. They're, I think, a Russian made, and there is some Chinese ones. You want to be careful about the ones you get. Those sound pretty nice. He recorded his wife, who's just an amazing classical guitar player, and brought stuff in for me to mix, and they sounded lovely.
Those are Octavas?
Octavas.
Okay.
I think they would be probably a pretty good choice for something that's not real expensive for the accordion.
What are we thinking, like between $100 and $200? Or?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. This is Studio World.
Regular people money.
I think it's we'd have to look online on that.
Okay.
Under $1,000.
Oh.
See, I usually think anything under $1,000 that you're buying for the studio is cheap. But
that's Studio World, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's considerably less. I think it but it might. Oh, we're finding
We're on
out.
it. We're on it right now.
over
Yeah,
it.
fact finders.
Maybe it's $400 a pair or something
Okay.
like that.
What was that model number?
Octava.
Octava. It should be I don't know the model off the top of my. I could find out.
Well,
that'll be in the.
We'll follow up. Yeah.
Varying prices.
And keep an eye out because David's gonna be creating another video on this too. So.
Yeah, I'll get more specific and I'll actually have real information.
I mic the right hand, I mic the left hand. Someone's do it in stereo. Good mics are better, bad mics are worse.
Yeah,
That's it.
And David, you have a YouTube channel, right, that you put all that stuff on?
Oh, I have a really haphazard one, but yeah, you
Sounds like mine.
Yeah, it's really poorly organized, and a lot of my studio stuff ends up there. So, if people are looking for accordion, the latest thing's probably going to be some singer singing in the studio. But you can.
Is it David Lange Studios?
No, it's actually just David Lange. Probably if you Google David Lange accordion,
you'll find it.
Yeah.
Perfect. EQing. Do you do a lot of EQing for the accordion? I mean, post-production stuff or what? Because some of the issues that I've had recording, aside from the microphone being out here and the volume thing happening, is key clicking and stuff. And some people are real particular about key noise, and some people are like, it adds, it's just part of the thing.
Yeah, I don't deal with those people.
Perfect.
Well, I mean, some accordions, whatever is in the instrument is what a good microphone's going to pick up.
Mm-hmm.
So if your instrument makes a lot of key clicking, it's going to pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't like key clicking,
Turn the highs down.
get a new instrument.
There you go.
I mean, if you don't like key clicking, it's going to bother you while you're playing. So, so yeah, I usually you can turn the highs down, but there's certain things. I don't know. I have an issue with the left hand because mine's sort of bright, and so I do sometimes pull some 2K, some of the harsh stuff out, and I feel guilty about it, but I do it. In the ideal world, you want to do as little EQ as possible, and I usually find that I don't have to do much on the right hand.
Okay.
This thing sounds really creamy and nice, and on mic it sounds really good. So I usually don't do too much over here, but I might trim the top off the left hand.
All right. Well, I think that's it. That's the answer. Make the accordion sound good. Don't mess with it too much if you can.
Yeah, I mean, the standard rule in the studio is like, the thing that can make your recording sound the absolute best is a better musician. So,
Just got to pick one of those up.
Yeah. So I'm trying to become a better musician, make it sound better.
I hope that everybody is, always, at least, I mean, unless you don't want to be, but if you're going to play, it's nice to get better, It's nice
Yeah,
to work.
I mean, there's a lot of ways of playing. I bump into people all the time who've had an accordion in the closet forever, and they're just pulling it out and stuff. And I think it's just wonderful, get out there, play. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to even be better, because it can just be fun.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're serious about what you're doing, of course, then you are going to get out the metronome and stuff.
Great. What a great PSA for the metronome today, you know?
Yeah. Your metronome stock is going
That's
way
right.
up today.
They did not pay us to say this. We didn't say any brand names.
We're going to do a tune?
Let's do it. Yeah. So I think Avalon's the one. A nice sort of like,
And
I mean, you know, you hear that one in the I was trying to think of like what's a tune that I know that's also like sort of in that gypsy jazz thing, but I actually started learning it from playing in some trad jazz bands.
oh yeah, I looked at it yesterday because I just play it by instinct.
Yes.
And I realized there's a lot of different ways to play it. So hopefully we're going to change, try and
Well.
choose the same way of playing it.
I'll make sure that I listen.
You want to
And
pull
I
out
will
the
do the
click
same.
track?
Yeah, let's get the click out too, you know? You played some kind of intro before that was neat, and I'll just try to not mess it up.
Okay, well, I'm just going to play time.
Okay.
And you come in playing the melody, and I'll try and go to the chords that fit with the melody.
Wonderful.
Let's see. Nice. Very nice.
David, thank you so much for hanging with me today. And
That was great.
Oh, thank you. Love it. They talked to me through the machines. Yeah, David, you're a great player, man.
You're fabulous.
Really super fun, man.